No one can stop a suicide. Once it is chosen, it will take place.
The fact is, if people in a crisis get the help they need, most will never be suicidal again.
Confronting a person about suicide will only make them angry and increase the risk of suicide.
The fact is, asking someone directly about suicide lowers anxiety, opens up communication, and lowers the risk of an impulsive act.
I think that really anything could drive someone to suicide.
I think one of the main ones right now is bullying, because it's not just bullying in schools anymore. We have cyberbullying, and that's really, really hurting other students because people don't have respect for each other.
Could be family issues too. If you don't have a supportive family and someone to go home to, then you have nothing. You go home from a bad day at school, there's no one there to talk to about it, and they just feel alone.
And there's a lot of pressure in school these days, like to do good with your grades and to do good in sports, and it just, sometimes you could feel really lonely with all the pressure too.
I think it's just whatever kind of is on a person's mind that is really weighing them down. It can, almost anything can drive somebody to suicide.
So anybody can commit suicide. It could be your star athlete, your valedictorian, or the shy student that doesn't have a friend.
It definitely doesn't have to be just a shy student. It could be someone that's going to be valedictorian and is pushing themselves so hard to the point where they just can't take it anymore.
They're just too stressed out and they just can't take it anymore.
And even if the people have a lot of friends and they're the most popular person, they still have to have that to live up to. And that could be a lot of pressure in itself too.
When somebody feels hopelessness, I think that's kind of what really drives them to suicide.
Only experts can prevent suicide.
The fact is, suicide prevention is everybody's business, and anyone can help prevent the tragedy of suicide.
On December 31st, 1999, we lost our son Jason to suicide. We first learned of Jason's thoughts of suicide in November. I had talked to the high school guidance counselor at the time, and he had a printed off transcript that Jason had talked to someone online with and mentioned suicide. So from there, we, as a family, went to family counseling, which seemed to help. Jason liked it, we liked it. It ended with the upcoming Christmas holidays for a little bit because of the holidays, and then Christmas was good. We had a good Christmas together. We went shopping in between Christmas and New Year's there. Everything seemed, you would have never even known there was anything wrong. Everything seemed fine. Then December 31st, my daughter and I, Lacey, had gone out to breakfast. Jason slept in, which was nothing unusual. And we came home from breakfast to a smell in the house that we just didn't recognize. And Lacey went into her room and I went into our room, just looking in the house to see what this smell was. Well, the smell turned out to be what happens when a gun goes off and it meets flesh. And I found my son Jason had shot himself in the head. So from there, the real impact of this whole situation really unfolded. Jason had left a note for us, and in that note, part of the note said that soon you'll forget about this, something to that effect. And that statement there could not be more false. The impact of this event, just to start with the house, we had roof repairs done. We needed to have our walk-in closet, our bedroom, We had to have the walls stripped down to the studs. The floor was ripped down to the floorboards. Anything that had blood on was removed from the home. We lost basically 85% of our clothing that we had in our walk-in closet. Everything was removed. And then on to, let's start right at the top with mother. My wife is not here today just because she's with me in her thoughts and prayers, but the reality of this is just still too real today, even 11 years later. I had my boss call me between Christmas and New Year this year, and my wife knew by what I was saying what my boss was talking about, and she just started to cry because it's that real and that impactful on her life still today, even 11 years later. Myself as a dad, I've tried to do things like this that can maybe bring some good out of a tragedy. This is way out of the box for me to do something like this, but try and make something positive there again out of a really bad situation. My daughter Lacey just this past week was telling us a story of a class that she has in college that they had to talk about suicide. So that really impacted her. It was, she said, in her words, she said, it was really hard, Dad, to talk about it. And so it's, here again, it's just the whole impact. My grandparents, Jason's grandparents, our relatives, his friends. One of his friends, his dad is a doctor. And that doctor actually was visiting my mom when she was in the hospital recently. And this doctor told my mom that Jason's friend still talks about him and still gets upset about it. And he was just a friend. It wasn't even a close, it wasn't a mom or a dad or a sister. So the impact is, you can't even imagine. It's ongoing, it's daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. It's always something that's always there. And our hope as a family by doing this, my wife, my daughter Lacey, myself, is that if this impacts and saves just one life, it was worth it all.
Suicidal people keep their plans to themselves.
The fact is, most suicidal people communicate their intent sometime during the week preceding their attempt.
I think suicide is definitely a huge problem, especially now because we have a lot more technology than they used to. So now we have cyberbullying.
Yeah, it's just not face-to-face anymore. You put something on the internet about someone, everyone knows about it, and someone's life could be extremely altered.
And things get around so much quicker now too. I mean, stuff gets out about people before the people it's about even know it, and it's scary.
People just don't care anymore. They'll just say whatever they feel like saying about a person, not realizing if it's going to hurt their feelings or not.
Suicide is a problem everywhere, but I definitely think it's more of a problem here in this area because of the increased alcohol use, the drug abuse, and just kind of the culture in this area. I mean, those things are deeply rooted, so it's kind of hard to get rid of it.
And especially drugs and alcohol really add pressure to people's lives. I mean, if you get addicted to drugs or you need money and things, it could really send people downhill.
I think another one of the problems is that we only hear about the bullying or the drug use suicides, but what about the people that are pressured because they're star athletes or they're the valedictorian? What happens to those people? We never hear about those ones on the news. I think those ones are really hidden, and those are the ones that are happening around here as well.
Because no one expects, the valedictorian to want to commit suicide. They expect the shy, quiet kid in the corner that doesn't talk to anyone. Well, there's a lot more pressure on the football player than there would be that person.
People need to be more open about it because, if you're not going to contact someone to let them know that you're having problems, no one's going to know, and it just goes downhill from there. Just a problem.
people don't think it could happen to them when it really could happen to them.
That really adds to the problem. People aren't aware. Like, they just don't think it could happen, and then they don't recognize it in themselves, and they can't stop it.
Most people don't really see it as a problem until it's already happened, and then it's too late.
And then it just doesn't affect the person, it affects everyone around them. And that's one other reason why it's such a problem.
It's sad to say, but even like if someone you don't talk to in school and you only see them in the hallways, if they went and committed suicide, you don't understand like how many people would be upset over it. Like the entire school would be upset, teachers, friends of the family. I mean, it would really affect a lot of people other than just your family and yourself. I mean, it's a big deal.
Those who talk about suicide do not do it.
The fact is, people who talk about suicide may try or even complete an act of suicide.
Our son, on the 24th of March, 2004, shot himself in the head. 4 years earlier, he had had surgery for a brain tumor. The brain tumor and the surgery left him paralyzed on the right side. He had done a tremendous job at recovering, but he never saw that he was gaining like we saw him gaining. He became increasingly more depressed as the time went on. So 4 years after the date of the surgery, he completed suicide, and that was the main message was, I died 4 years ago. In his mind, he died 4 years ago. So here we are, 6 years out, and we're still living with the aftermath and what goes with it. He felt he would be a burden to us, and even though he knew we loved him with all of our hearts and we supported him, he did not want to be a burden. He did not want to have to put us through that or anybody else. He was a suicide crisis counselor, so he thought he had all the answers, and he thought he knew how we would feel afterwards, and he thought we would recover, but he was very wrong. He kept sinking lower and lower. He just wanted the pain, the emotional pain, and the apathy to go away, and it wouldn't. He actually quit his job. He was going to be a writer. He loved to write, and he had actually started a book. 2 weeks after he quit his crisis job, he was dead. He had only tried writing for a week, or continued to try writing for a week, and during that time, the suicide thoughts got stronger and stronger and stronger. And it truly was one of these situations where no matter what we did, because even if we asked him point blank, are you thinking of committing suicide? Are you thinking of completing suicide? Are you going to do something? He'd say, oh, no, no, no. I'm just talking, I'm just talking. And even though you wanted to ignore it, you couldn't. And even though we thought we saw it coming, we didn't. And of course, he ended it all on the 4-year mark of his surgery. What he didn't know was what he left us with, the guilt. Imagine being hit by a train, and you can't imagine that. The pain is unbelievable. The wind goes out of you. You really feel like you're going to die of a broken heart. I truly did not think I could live a year without him. I was sure I would be dead by the end of a year. There's a lot of anger, there's a lot of despair, a lot of emotional roller coaster that you go through over the years. I like to call them sneak attacks that keep showing up even now at the darndest times in the darndest of places. You just don't know when it's going to hit you. You hear a song or you see something that triggers a thought of him, or something bizarre happens and you think of him. The guilt for me is, I'm mom, and moms usually fix things, and I didn't, and mom's a nurse, so mom really fixed things, and he always turned to me for that, and I couldn't fix him this time. So that is one of the things I live with to this day, and even though I know better, it doesn't really help. Also, the other guilt for me is I had intended to go see him on Monday after work, and I was too tired, so I didn't go. And I was going to go Tuesday. And I was also too tired on Tuesday. And Wednesday morning, he was gone. Realizing the mental anguish that he was in and the emotional pain that he was in bothers me to think that I couldn't see it and couldn't help him out of this deep, dark hole that they seem to get into. He did leave us letters, which did help us to understand. It helps, but it doesn't. It still doesn't take the pain away. And I don't think he ever could possibly realize that the pain doesn't go away. The grief does lessen, but there's always the hole. And you just carry that with you.
Once a person decides to commit suicide, there is nothing anyone can do to stop them.
The fact is, suicide is the most preventable kind of death. Any positive action may save a life.
No one ever really talks about suicide. You don't hear about it in school. I mean, it's a really touchy subject, so people don't say about it on the news a lot, and it's just, you don't hear about it.
Nobody really wants to talk about suicide. I mean, it's a sad thing, it's depressing, and I mean, I personally don't like to talk about it. It just, I don't know. I haven't had any encounters with it personally, but still, it's just so edgy.
I remember learning about it in middle school. We had a guidance teacher that would come in once a week for like a marking period, and we'd watch videos on the bullying type of suicide, and we'd watch videos on how a kid can go to school and be bullied and then go home and have a bad home life, and then he has nowhere to go. So I had experience learning about it, but I haven't heard about it since middle school.
See, I never had any type of school education curriculum talking about it. Like, we just kind of pushed it off to the side, I guess. They didn't want to talk about it, so we never did.
My school was the same way. You never heard about it, never had any classes about it. So when it's brought up or someone does it, it's just like, ooh, oh geez, no one wants to talk about it.
Yeah, I've had very little schooling. I think it's just kind of thrown in like a little paragraph in textbooks, but no teachers really elaborate. They don't teach you the signs or what to look for in people and how to really help them. I think people really don't want to talk about it because it can be so shocking to so many people, the way it affects so many people. It's just kind of an ignored subject.
I think I learned about it when I was too young, or when my age group was too young, because we really never took too much out of the classes we had. They were about mostly the bullying, suicides, and I don't know, it wasn't effective, I don't think, and I think it needs to be brought up. As we're older now, our emotions are different, and we feel different things than we did when we were younger.
I also students don't even talk about it. Not only do our teachers not talk about it, students don't talk with each other or even ask teachers about it.
And also the kids that are going to commit suicide, they don't talk about it either. Like, they may say to your friends with the whole code of silence thing, but then the friend doesn't know whether to talk to people about it because their friend was like, oh, don't tell anyone. Like, it just might make it worse. But the people that are going to commit suicide really need to talk about it, because that's the only way people are going to help them, if they know.
People that are about to commit suicide will tell one of their close friends, and they'll tell their friend, oh, don't tell anybody, I didn't mean it, when actually they're trying to get help, and the friend then doesn't go and try and get help because they think, oh, she'll never do it, when in reality, if she's telling you that she's going to do it, then you better find an adult or someone trustworthy to tell, because that's giving you the hint, which is one of the signs.
I think everybody really needs to be educated in what to do in that situation, because it can be a difficult situation, especially for somebody our age, when you really don't know what to do and you don't know who you can trust. You really need to be educated by somebody who knows what they're doing.
And it's a more common situation than you might think, too.
If a suicidal youth tells a friend of a plan, the friend will tell an adult.
The fact is, most youth honor the code of silence and do not tell others of the plan to commit the suicide.